Earlier today, I saw this opinion piece posted on townhall.com. It's written by Dennis Prager. America is drowning in the left's lies about Trump. Now, I wasn't necessarily going to open by showing this story, and to be honest, I'm not going to read through the opinion piece. I just want to show you that headline because it's exactly how I feel today. In the past few days, there's been some pretty tragic events. And following this, every single lead story, obviously not every single story, I'm being hyperbolic, but just the front page of every single news site is the same thing over and over and over again. Trump's rhetoric, Trump's speech, Trump's to blame. They're putting their opinions in stories. They're publishing nonstop, incessant analysis and just overt lies. And I gotta tell you, because I have to read all of these stories to try and figure out what's going on, at a certain point, I just start exiting them out. I don't even bother clicking them, and I tune them out, and boy, is it frustrating. The reason I highlight this piece from Dennis Prager is because he's right. America is drowning in lies from the left, but also the media. And I have some examples for you. And I want to talk about a more egregious instance where we can just plainly see maybe it's fair to say the left and the media are just mostly the same thing. Now, I get it. The media can refer to literally everything, including Town Hall, which is a certified by NewsGuard as being, for the most part, factually accurate. The media does include conservative commentary and news websites. But for the most part, when it comes to the New York Times, CNN, the Washington Post, it's very clearly the left. And these are the big prominent papers. Now, there's a lot of reasons why it may be. They're based in urban centers for the most part. Local journalism is dying off. Or it could just be people who want to work there share the opinions of the stories they see. They think they're right. They think they're being honest, and they're liars. Let me show you some stories that are probably going to, well, I would say shock you, but you're going to be like, yep, what else is new? What if I told you the New York Times published a neutral headline referencing Trump's speech, and because of outrage from the far left and mainstream left, they changed the headline? I kid you not. Let's go through some stories, and I'm going to show you just how ridiculous and insane things are getting. Before we get started, head over to timcast.com/donate if you'd like to support my work. There's a PayPal option, a crypto option, a physical address. And of course, the best thing you can do, just share this video. Let me just stress, YouTube is deranking my channel, other channels like mine. They're propping up CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, etc. Now, you may think, hey, at least there's a little balance there, right? Yes, but most media is leaning left. That's the point. Look, I don't care for the political opinions of these outlets for the most part. I care about factual information. They're all allowed to have their opinions, but man, if you like the idea of me calling out fake news, then please consider sharing this video because I'm competing with this, what you see right here on the screen. And what you see, or for those listening that don't see it, Nate Silver, he tweeted, tomorrow's NYT New York Times print edition, not sure, quote, Trump urges unity versus racism is how I would have framed the story. He didn't like that, huh? Well, as it turns out, neither did many of the presidential candidates who pressured the New York Times into changing their headline. Now, actually, let me see if I can pull this back up. One of the trends as of right now, I don't have it pulled up, is cancel NYT. I kid you not. This is what they do. The left threatens to cancel their subscription because the headline about Trump was just telling you the facts. Trump said this. And the left gets outraged, and the New York Times capitulates. The media is catering to the left, and this should show you, this is evidence. Look at this story from the Washington Examiner. And yes, the Examiner is a more conservative source. New York Times changes headline on Trump shooting response after presidential candidates slam them. And here we can see Beto O'Rourke saying unbelievable in response to Nate Silver. Cory Booker, lives literally depend on you doing better, New York Times, please do. Bill de Blasio, New York Times, what happened? And Julie K. Brown says, one headline writer's mistake is not cause enough to close the door on an army of truly great journalists who don't write the headlines, as you know. Well, eventually, we can see that they changed the headline, which now reads, assailing hate but not guns. Why? I don't understand. Why would the New York Times cave? Well, the answer is quite simple. The New York Times, like any other business, wants money. And when their overly liberal base starts getting outraged, or more importantly, I don't think their base is going to be overly liberal, but let me just stress this. Something is amiss. Something is plainly visible when you have Democratic presidential candidates outraged, insulting Trump, and they cave to the Democrats. Isn't that bad? Trump is a person in politics. He's going to be running for re-election. Why should the New York Times take sides? We can see how this was coming from the left. Here's a story from Splinter, of which before it was Splinter, it was Fusion. I worked there. What was the New York Times thinking? I don't know. They were probably thinking they created a headline that paraphrased what Trump actually said. Heaven forbid the news actually reflect what Trump said. Now, you may be saying, well, they changed the headline to assailing hate but not guns. That's not necessarily anti-Trump. Maybe this isn't an example of the media trying to favor the left, just not trying to enrage them. Well, let me show you another story here. This one is from CNBC. Trump, without evidence, accuses Google of illegally swinging election against him in 2020. Can I ask a question? Why did this writer, Jesse Pound, add the phrase without evidence to this story? Why do they all do the same thing? Why is it a common occurrence? You know what I see? I saw this when I worked there. I see it now. These people don't have original thoughts. I'm not exaggerating, and I'm not trying to be mean. I've sat at bar tables with these people. I've been in their offices. They're regurgitating what they heard from someone else. There's literally no reason a journalist should ever put without evidence in a phrase criticizing or highlighting something someone else said. Can you please give me examples of how in common colloquial English, people say things like, I went to the store yesterday. Here's a receipt to prove it. I went to the store to buy milk. Here's my receipt for the milk. Who does that? If somebody wants to make a political point, they'll just make it. They don't stop to present evidence that makes literally no sense. Why would someone at CNBC inject that into the headline? Which I might add is fake news, and we'll get to that. Well, here's my opinion. The reason they add without evidence is not because they're doing their due diligence, because they're journalists. It's because they want to be emotionally satisfied taking a swing at someone they don't like, or to signal to the left that they're on your side, calling Trump a liar. Perhaps it's because this person saw the outrage that was generated by the left over a New York Times headline. And think about where that puts us. I don't care about what your politics are. I care about the fact that scientific articles have been pulled down due to activist outrage. Not an exaggeration. I care about the fact that headlines are forced to be changed because of left-wing activist outrage. And I'm angry that I'm looking at CNBC adding fake news without evidence is completely fake news. I am angry because they are putting fake news in their headlines. Why? Because Jesse Pound is either an activist who is trying to emotionally satisfy himself instead of actually helping you understand what's happening, or he's just trying to make sure everybody thinks he's on the right side. Let's take a look at what he actually wrote. In a series of tweets on Tuesday, Trump listed evidence-free accusations by several people, including Fox News host Lou Dobbs and former Google employee Kevin Cernekee. Oh, wait, hold on, I'm sorry. Without evidence? But Trump cited a Google employee? Explain to me your definition of the word evidence. First of all, whether he includes evidence in his statement or not is immaterial. It is irrelevant to the point he is making. If you don't like what he's saying, you can fact check him. But adding without evidence does literally nothing. In fact, it's the opposite of what Trump did, because Trump directly referenced Kevin Cernekee. Kevin Cernekee, a Google engineer, he says, I watched Kevin Cernekee, a Google engineer, say terrible things about what they did in 2016 and that they want to make sure that Trump loses. Let me tell you something. In a court of law, did you know that witness testimony is evidence? It's not definitive proof. And you can say that, and I'd be okay with that. If they said Trump tweets without definitive proof, I'd say, sure, I don't know why you needed to add that, but at least that one's kind of acceptable. In this instance, we can just clearly see it. The New York Times bending over backwards to activist outrage, CNBC publishing literal fake news. What reasonable person would consider citing a Google employee saying they are doing this to be without evidence? More importantly, they keep saying things like this. Let me read. He says in the story, there's no evidence that Google manipulates information to stifle conservative voices. Okay, let's break down how he's phrasing this. There's no evidence that Google manipulates information. Stop. There is. But he said to stifle conservative voices. Actually, a leaked email published by Project Veritas shows, yes, there is evidence. Can I just, look, I'm really frustrated today because I've probably read, like, seriously, 60 to 70 articles, and it's just all fake news. And at a certain point, I'm like, I don't know how to sift through this. I don't know how you actually deal with this problem, but I am drowning in a sea of fake news about Donald Trump. There's no evidence that Google manipulates information. How to stifle conservative voices? How about the email from a Google employee saying they should restrict the YouTube channels of several prominent conservatives, including Jordan Peterson, Ben Shapiro, and PragerU, because of the perceived political leanings of these groups? How about you do your jobs for once? These companies have no fact checkers. They don't care to fact check, and they are more satisfied by putting emotional digs at somebody in their story instead of doing the job they're paid to do. But you know what? There won't be. Journalism died a long time ago, and it's getting worse and worse every day. I've got more stories to go through. This is a story from a couple weeks ago. Trump's latest racist comments, including calling a majority black area a disgusting rat and rodent-infested mess. The president's own housing secretary, Ben Carson, lives in the district. By Ryan C. Brooks of BuzzFeed. The title, Racist Comments. Okay, you want to call Trump racist? I don't care. But this is an op-ed. This is an opinion piece. I'm sorry, it's not listed as an opinion piece. This is what I deal with every single day when trying to understand what's actually happening. The only reason they would put that in there is because they are angry and they want to be emotionally satisfied. They have the maturity of children. And see, saying that emotionally satisfies me. But it's true. Look, I can read a story. I can try to remove my emotions from what is actually happening. I try to tell you, like, here's what happened and here's how I feel about it. And many of the stories I cover, I want to make sure the facts are clear. I use a third party news rating agency, NewsGuard, to check my own bias because I disagree with them on many instances. Like, they give the Daily Beast a green check mark, even though the Daily Beast publishes, look, they give BuzzFeed a green check mark. However, they do say, oh, no, yeah, they give them green check marks across the board. And here we are looking at a BuzzFeed story, which is an overt op-ed that clearly doesn't like the president. And this is news today. You have a bunch of immature children who work for these companies who are so angry they don't care about what is factually true. And then they'll say things like this, but as journalists, maybe we should point out the president is a racist. No, that's an opinion. In fact, when the Covington student sued the Washington Post over, the lies they published, the Washington Post got the case dismissed. Why? The judge said the language used by the Washington Post was opinion and hyperbole and rhetorical devices that weren't definitive facts. Welcome to News Today. And it's particularly bad. It's frustrating to see a circumstance like the Covington incident, but here we go again. And what do we get for it? We get dramatic calls to violence from things like, so let's move on, right? So I've shown you a few bits of the fake news. First, they get you angry by saying Trump's lying. He's got no evidence. Sure, I think Trump lies. I think he lies a lot. Fine. It doesn't give you the right to lie back. I don't understand what these people are thinking. Take a look at this tweet I highlighted the other day. We're going to do it again. 252,000 retweets. Shooter, I was inspired by Trump. Wrong. The shooter's manifesto, which according to the New York Times now was confirmed, says he wasn't inspired by Trump. But moving on, media, what could have caused this? Shooter, look at this cool photo of the word Trump spelled out in firearms. Fact check, wrong. The photo did not come from the guy in El Paso. Media, he probably played too much Fortnite. Shooter, it's like Trump said, Hispanics are invading us. Technically true. Trump did refer to the migrant caravan as an invasion. So the way it's framed, I'll give it a technically, but Trump did say that. But let's take a look at the premise of this tweet. He was not inspired by Trump. He didn't make that photo. 252,000 retweets. Where's the fact check? It's not here. So what ends up happening then is people see the fake news about Trump. They're already angry because they think he's a liar. Somebody tweets this, which is not journalism. It is fake news. Even though this person is a legal analyst for Rewire, it's fake news. This tweet, fake news, and it goes viral. And nothing can stop it. When these companies realize that fake news is profitable, they will go for it full stop, or full steam ahead, I should say. Just full steam, just shoveling that coal into the steam engine. Steam engines are pretty cool though, aren't they? And where does it leave us? Reza Aslan calling for the eradication of Trump supporters. Now, of course, perhaps that's my opinion, but here's what Reza Aslan said. The president is a white nationalist terror leader. His supporters, all of them are by definition white nationalist supporters. The MAGA hat is a Klan hood, and this evil racist scourge must be eradicated from society. If the subject of that tweet is Trump and his supporters, I'd have to imagine he's calling for them to be eradicated. And what else can you expect other than just escalation? This is what's frustrating to me. Seeing these fake news stories, seeing the incessant lies, it just never seems to stop. Here's another story from BuzzFeed, which is not necessarily fake news, but let me explain to you how it is. BuzzFeed writes, so many people were shot in Chicago this weekend, a hospital had to briefly stop taking patients. Chicago had 2 mass shootings within hours of each other on Sunday. In total, 46 people were injured by gun violence in the city over the weekend. So this story writes about something I believe is called bypass. Bypass, as my understanding, is when I want to see if they actually bring it up. Let me do a quick search to make sure I can. So they don't mention the phrase bypass, but I just want to stress this is not out of the ordinary. There is a system in place for hospitals to turn away, ambulances and patients because, yes, space is finite. They're trying to make it seem like this is a common occurrence, or like it's a rare occurrence, but it's actually decently common when hospitals will say, hey, we can't accommodate you, you have to go somewhere else. But of course, they're chasing the narrative. This is somebody who said, oh my God, a hospital, instead of doing the research, instead of providing you with context, like hospitals have a procedure for turning away patients. It happens kind of frequently. That's why they have a procedure for this. They say, can you believe this happened? Yes, I can. It happens all the time, especially I'm from Chicago. But we can then see how things just, kind of escalate from here. CNN contributor deletes tweet referring to McConnell as Massacre Mitch. Now, some people have said this was him calling for physical violence against Mitch McConnell. Some people on the left have said it's actually insulting him, calling him Massacre Mitch because of things he's done. Not saying you should massacre him, but regardless, it was good of him to delete, I guess, but he shouldn't have tweeted it. He said something to the effect of seeing this hashtag trend makes him hopeful for America. And where do you think this kind of rhetoric leads? Far left protesters at McConnell's home, quote, saying, quote, just stab the mother effer in the heart. The rhetoric is getting insane because we're drowning in a sea of fake news. We really are. And there's no better example than the New York Times changing their headline because of pressure from activists. There's no better example than today, this fake story that added the phrase without evidence. They do this all the time. Why? It makes no sense. And then you can see activists saying, stab them in the heart. Now, I'm going to make sure I criticize McConnell and his campaign for sure, though I'm not going to necessarily say that Mitch McConnell himself called for this. The buck stops with the people on top, right? Team Mitch on Twitter said the Grim Reaper of socialism, and they posted a photo of a tombstone with a woman's name on it, Amy McGrath. And this got a ton of flack. And you know what? You can see the photo here. There's a fake little tombstone on a spike. It says Amy McGrath, R.I.P. Not appropriate. Look, you can claim it was a silly joke. You can say it's not his fault because his team did it. Fine, I don't care. It shouldn't have been done. When you have deranged leftists, calling for violence, when you have actual fringe extremists engaging in violence, we should be doing everything we can to make sure we're not alluding to acts of violence. And that includes Mitch McConnell, who I admit, I've never been a fan of the guy. I don't like this man, okay? I'll criticize him and whoever else. But you know what? Mitch McConnell being a silly turtle man, as they insult him to be, or having bad politics, fine. I don't like it, whatever. But I can't tell you what it's like to swim in a sea of fake news all day, every day. And then, today, I'm hoping they'll be done with it. It's been several days now of just incessant fake news over and over and over again. And it's like having someone drill into your temple. I've got some more stories pulled up. This one's irrelevant. This one shouldn't be here. This was actually, you can see this. I was working on other stories. This one says focus group of swing voters side with Trump on immigration. There was conflicting stories here. And I just couldn't get to it because it's all just so much fake news. I just swimming in a sea of fake news. But I want to highlight this story. Ocasio-Cortez, Trump's immigration rhetoric directly responsible for El Paso. Now, I bring this up for a reason. The front page of The Atlantic, 6 stories, said the exact same thing. The front page, 6 stories out of 15 or 20. The same narrative all day, nonstop. Great. Can we please get a story in The Hill, in BuzzFeed, in the Daily Mail, in Vox saying Ocasio-Cortez's rhetoric about concentration camps has caused a violent escalation too? Or can we just stop the rhetorical trash and move on? Apparently we can't. Because let me just go back to the beginning. America is drowning in the left's lies about Trump. Well, Dennis Prager is a conservative, so of course he's going to point the finger at the left. And I think it's fair to point to many elements of the left that are pushing lies, notably this tweet with 252,000 retweets, which is 66% fake news, because she made 3 points, 2 of which are completely fake, and then people don't do any research. They don't. They see this tweet, and that's their news. There was a report done by, it was Newswhip, I believe, tracking the most engaged with sources for the right in 2018, Fox News. Biased, they get some things wrong, I disagree with them, but for the most part, factual, real news agency. They're rated positive by NewsGuard. The left is Occupy Democrats. Look, I don't care what your policies are, but when you have a large section of people, when you have a large faction of people who don't actually read news and get their information on Facebook from memes, yes, we are swimming in the left's lies about Trump. And let me just stress how infuriating this story is from CNBC. Jesse Pound, for whatever reason, wrote this story where he adds this ridiculous, nonsensical phrase without evidence for no reason, as if to imply whenever people talk, they pause to inject evidence to explain how they did something. In fact, Trump literally did. Trump cited a Google employee who said they were biased. Did you know that a professor, I believe it was a professor, testified recently to Ted Cruz that Google did swing millions of votes? Not like that matters. Not like this people will do his job and actually investigate any of this information. And so then it's funny because the activists get mad and they say, Tim Pool's not a journalist. Quite literally, I do journalism all day. Now you're watching my political commentary channels, but it's just, it's an information war. And we are literally swimming in lies about Trump all day, every day. Now, it's not like there's not lies about other people. The right sometimes puts out misinformation and lies too. And I've called them out for it. Recently, there were a few stories that were misframing a narrative about a Somali journalist who went back to Somalia saying, they titled it something like, journalist goes to Ilhan Omar's homeland to show the beauty and then gets killed by terrorists. And the real story was a Somali refugee returned home to try and highlight the good of her country and was killed. You don't have to frame it as if putting Ilhan Omar's name made no sense and not including the fact that it was a literal Somali citizen doing it. It's like, look, it happens. But when CNBC does it, we've got serious problems. When the New York Times changes a headline to bend to left-wing Democratic politicians, man, we're in trouble. And it is tiring. It is tiring. I'll leave it there. Stick around. I get to do 3 more segments later today, and the entire news cycle is dominated by the same story over and over. I'll tell you what, I see fake news all the time, and fine, I get it. It's fake news all day, every day. I'm being a bit hyperbolic here. But today, it's not so much the fake news, it's that literally the front page of every website has the same story written 7 times. Trump's rhetoric, Trump's rhetoric, Trump's rhetoric, Trump's rhetoric. It's just nonsense. It's just fake news. I'll leave it there. See you in the next segment at 6 p.m. youtube.com/TimCastNews. Thanks for hanging out.